The first of two races this weekend in the GT4 European Series here at Paul Ricard is almost good to get underway. It is a 1 hour race with, of course, mandatory pit stops, with driver changes and with battles across the Silver, the Pro-Am and the Am categories. And it is a fine and varied grid that stretches all the way back along that pit straight, with the combination to beat out of the Silver Cup being Gus Bowers and Konstantin Lachenauer, who took 2 out of 2 at Imola. They came here as the favourites, but it's a very different sort of circuit, Paul Ricard, of course, than the somewhat undulating Italian circuit, and so different brands have come to the fore across free practice and qualifying. We are just after 4 o'clock local time, which means that all of that glorious sunshine we had earlier on in the day has now been replaced by a little bit of grey cloud, but it is still very muggy outside, it's still very warm, and we'll see how the temperatures are going to affect the different brands represented on this GT4 European Series grid. David Addison and Ben Constanduras trackside as we get set for another very busy hour, Ben, because, as I say, not only is it a very varied grid in terms of the brands and where they are to be found, but it's a huge grid stretching all the way to the last corner.
50 cars in total, a fantastic varied grid of cars and drivers, with the Silver Cup cars having 2 silvers. We've got a couple of gold drivers out there, and then we have the fully Ams that are 2 bronze drivers. Temperatures in the same region as we saw from qualifying earlier, so there shouldn't have been a massive difference from what they felt in the qualifying session. The big difference, of course, being that they need to get their cars to up to 35 to 40 minutes on one set of on one stint, which will, with the humidity that we have, place a real demand on the drivers that perhaps aren't as fit as they should be.
Now, in terms of the front of the grid, Simon Gachet is the man that starts on pole position. It is the driver that set the qualifying time who will go first. So Simon Gachet in the Acodis ASP Mercedes, and Nico Verdonk lining up alongside. In the pit lane, though, there, so having missed the pit lane closing time, is number 18, which is the Team Spirit Racing Marcus Lundstrass Aston Martin. Henrik Pedersen will do the second stint, but number 18 then, sitting in the pit lane. Now, it might be allowed out to join the back of the grid on the formation lap. It might, therefore, have to start, alternatively, in the pit lane at the end, therefore, of that formation lap. So as everyone goes into the first corner, then it can be released. We'll keep an eye on that. Their third on the grid is Jim Pla, who lost a lap time for track limit abuses this morning. He was one of pretty much everybody at some stage. Poleman Simon Gachet quite lucky to get away with his time, because he did pretty much the same thing. In
the 2 sessions, 45 separate stewards' decisions for track infringements. How that plays out in the race will be quite interesting to see. There's lots of opportunity for going 4 wheels off the circuit, and you can gain an advantage quite easily by doing so. Of course, we saw Jim Pla's indiscretion on the exit of Beausset, running very, very wide through the middle part. Any point in which the car is 4 wheels off the track is a penalty, and there are judges of fact around the circuit watching out for that. They can, of course, miss it at times, but we have our eyes as well, and they will do their best to make sure that this is a fair competition. But with 45 in qualifying, there'll certainly be a few in the race as well.
Well, indeed so, and there's also going to be plenty of incidents and plenty of dramas and plenty of cars to look for, and one is going to be right at the very back of the grid. It's the Porsche Cayman that is going to be driven, number 22, by Vincent Andronico, and that car, to carve its way into the mix, is certainly going to be one to watch. Andronico having not really got a lap time in this morning.
Although, by the looks of our starting grid for race 1, I think they might have reinstated his time, because he isn't at the very back of the grid like we were expecting, although maybe there is only 49 cars on that grid, so maybe he is there but not listed.
Because the timing screen, which puts itself in grid order, still has him at the very back. Yeah. So it could be that the car has been withdrawn from the grid. Right, plot thickens here. We shall await more news to spring from the GT4 team from downstairs, but the car that I'm aware of hasn't been notified as a withdrawal, which is a real shame. We'll double check in a moment.
He didn't set a time, did he?
No.
In the end, because the one time that he did set was taken away, maybe he doesn't feature on our starting grid because he actually didn't set a time whatsoever. He'll share that that last row of the grid, with the Arcada 63 car, which has picked up 13 grid position drops through various different maladies, including some kind of fisticuffs in the pit lane during one of the sessions. I'm not sure if it was actually that car, but 13 grid drop for the 63, so he goes to the very back of the field.
Right, yes, when you've got 13 places of grid droppery, there's really only one place you are going, isn't it? And it's way, way, way back. It's a very busy grid. You can see the different variety of the brands. You've got Porsche, Audi, BMW, Aston Martin, Mercedes. That's just on one side of the grid, stretching all the way back. 18, I've told you, is in the pit lane, the Team Spirit Markus Lundstrass car. And I reckon that Andronico's Porsche is nestled in at the very back of the grid, the blue, two-tone blue Allied Racing entry. Number 24 there is the Pro Sport entry of Mike David Ortman. That is going to start on the 11th rank on the grid. The Silver Cup coming into this race being led by Konstantin Lachnau and Gus Bowers, having won both races in Imola. You also get a point per class for pole position. Second in silver, Rui Muirhas and Owen Bastar, who are quite a long way back, relatively speaking, on the grid in the Audi, so they've got some work to do. And third, Tom Canning and Akhil Rabindra. In Pro-Am, Vincent Andronico and Andreas Mayel, the championship leaders, with a class win and a class second. But they are tied on points, effectively, with Alex Fontana and Ivan Jacoma, who did it the other way around. They had a second and a win. And then Jim Plough and Jean-Luc Bobelic third. Whilst in the AMS, Christophe Amont and Michel Blanchemin 2 points up on Julien Lambert and Wilfried Casalbon. 3-minute board being shown there at the front of the grid as we get closer to the start of the race. And the good news is that very definitely I'm looking at the back end of a Cayman, so Vincent Andronico is on the grid after all, which is good news. He's there and ready to go.
Got a lot of work to do from 50th on the grid, and even looking at race 2 a bit further ahead of time, they're still not really that far up, so maybe Allied Racing with an issue with that car that needed fixing. From the eyes on the ground, it had certainly made contact with something, probably someone. There was a bit of damage across the whole of the front bumper, actually, and a lot of tape keeping that car together. So it may not run in the best way in this race as a whole, especially if that tape has to cover a little bit of cooling, because you will need cooling for the car, the engine, as well as the driver and the tyres across the full 1 hour in over 30 degrees of heat and as we saw in our graphic, over 40 degrees of track temperature.
Now, of course, many of the teams in the European GT4 Series are French teams because the French GT Championship runs purely to GT4 specification, and perhaps that gives those French teams a bit more of an advantage coming here because they race here during their normal championship. So they've got data, they've got circuit knowledge and so forth. But that said, it's still going to be a very interesting race. And Nico Verdonk on the outside of the front row, hugely experienced as you look at number 138 Alpine, which is the Julien Brichet and Jean-Laurent Navarro driven car. That had a spin, didn't it, in Navarro's hands in the second qualifying session for tomorrow's grid. Number 12 BMW, Beke Beşler starts, the Turkish driver for Borusan Automotive. And Will Burns, who won the GT4 class in a similar car in the British Championship last year, will take over. And that's the Porsche we've been banging on about. That is Vincent Andronico, who is for Allied Racing 50th and stone last on the grid. And
it does look as though that front bumper is still the same one that they used. So they haven't totally replaced the front bumper. They've kept the little bit of rubber marks on the nose of the car, and therefore there must be a little bit of tape on the front left-hand corner. There's tape on the splitter. In fact, the whole thing's been taped up, hasn't it? Yeah. Right splitter, and there was a bit of work on the left-hand side as well. So we are speculating that there was contact with another car. We don't know which car that was. Either way, they never got a lap from the taping in the pits to then going out on track and having a lap disallowed. Andronico needed a banker lap, and actually what happened is he pushed too hard, ran off track, had it disallowed, starts the back. He would have started around 20th position had he got that lap registered.
Allied Racing, a team that also runs in GT3, but it's the team owned by Jan Kasperlik, who we've also seen in this championship in the past, and the Porsche Cayman, which is one of the cars really that's been responsible for the very huge growth of GT4, because Porsche decided eventually that they'd quite like to call a car GT4, but as SRO owned the name, they had to go to SRO and say, can we borrow GT4, please? And Stefan Rattel said, well, yeah, I'm sure we can come to an arrangement, but why don't you build some cars and put them on a grid? And Porsche did, and sold lots and lots and lots, and then other manufacturers realised the success available. They built lots and lots and lots, and then finally GT4, which was a bit of a slow burn to begin with, caught hold. And you can see the net result. Big grids, and a really interesting race in prospect. We're on the formation lap, not the start of the race. One last opportunity around this 5.177 kilometre long circuit to get a bit of warmth into the Pirelli tyres, and then we'll go racing with these 3 class battles to keep an eye on in the Silver, Pro-Am and Am categories.
These first drivers, the more experienced the drivers, and here is the grid then.
Yeah, with Simon Gachet on pole position and Nico Verdonk starting alongside him, with Jim Pla on the second row of the grid, and Antoine Potty is alongside him. It's Tom Canning and Dante Raponge sharing row 3 ahead of Constantin Lachenauer. Double winner thus far, Alex Fontana, one to watch alongside ahead of Enzo Juliet and then Greg Gilbert. The 6th row is Mike David Ortman for Pro Sport Racing, and Adam Carroll, one to watch, the A1GP champion and the British GT race winner more recently. You name it, he's raced it feels like. He will start for Greystone GT ahead of Hendrik Still and then Jean-Baptiste Mela, the reigning Alpine champion. Rui Meerhaus and Julien Brichet come next ahead of Berke Besler and Anthony Beltoise. Ralph Calleners and Adrian Tombe are ahead of Gabriela Yilkova and Stanislav Safronov. Kenton Koch for the American driver on the 12th row with Matteo Herrero for company. Then it is Philippe Vava in the NM Racing Team, Mercedes, and Wilfried Casabon lining up alongside for AGS Events. Etienne Schielli for CMR and Antoine Leclerc next on the grid ahead of Benjamin Ricci, showing with his dad, and Simon Thurman for Autosport GP. Moritz Wiskirchen is next for Allied Racing, and a gap where the Markus Lundstrass car should have been. That's currently in the pit lane ahead of Alexandre Voller and Michael Laboda on the original grid. Alexandre Papadopoulos and Michel Blanchimont come next. Papadopoulos for the Sellerslach Racing Team, Michel Blanchimont for Team Full Motorsport. Then it's Jagic Gadic for the BMW Borusan Automotive Team alongside Ruben Del Sart ahead of Max Strasoldi's BMW and the Audi of Benjamin Lariche. Noah Andy is next alongside Jeremy Le Soudier. Then Jean-Luc Behetz for Sellerslach's team with Vincent Easy next on the grid. Pascal Gibon lines up alongside Cyril Salai on the 23rd row. The 24th row, we're not done yet, is Franck Chanien, and Frederic de Brabant is alongside. He starts 48th, 49th on the grid. Thomas Martinez, and 50th with his binoculars out to see the front of the grid is Vincent Andronico in the Allied Racing Porsche Cayman.
So we covered the penalties for Arcadia down at the back end of the field. Other penalties, 5-place grid drop for the Code Racing Development number 36 machine, and most significantly, Pro Sport Racing, Mike David Ortman and Hugo Sasse, 5-place grid drop. So they dropped down to 12th position on the grid. They should have been up there in the top 10. So other cars that are slightly out of position from where they should be. Of course, the drivers that start this race were the drivers that qualified first. So in theory, they're in the right kind of an order for the start of this race.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating one, and it could all unravel around the first couple of corners, because you've got that first pinch point of turn 1, which is the tight left, then a right flick, then the road opens up a little bit down to a chicane. So the first few corners, doesn't matter what the category, are always frantic, and if you can survive that, then you're going to be well placed. 44 going through there, Moritz Wiskirchen. Quite a number of these teams I've mentioned do, of course, the French Championship, but the German teams also have an option back home with a national GT4 Championship. So it's a really good playing field, is to bring them from different regions, put them on the same grid. And the GT4 European Series, which would be a very, very good headline event in itself, part of the support package this weekend to Fanatec GT. We're set to go racing. The car on pole position is the one nearest there. 81, nearest the camera coming out of the Virage du Pont. Simon Gachet is at the wheel of it. The cars accelerate their way now up towards the timing line. Steve Burns, the race director, will give the indication that the race can get underway. The lights will blink green. We will go racing. 1 hour of GT4 is underway. Mercedes versus Aston Martin, and the Mercedes absolutely storms away, doesn't it? Simon Gachet charges off down towards turn 1. It is going to be behind him Nico Verdonk, and look how busy the road is. 3, 4, 5 wide in the mid-pack. Breathe in, dive into turn 1. Are they all going to get through safely? He says in a voice laden with doom. Well, so far, so good. One of the BMs there gets squeezed out wide over the curbs. That was the Berke Besler car. They're still recovering from curb hoppery in the background, but I don't think anybody picked up damage.
There's a little bit of nudging going on, as you would expect. Slightly touring car S through turn 1, but as you say, everyone is pointing in the right direction. It was a bit of a slow start from Tom Canning from row 3. He was just off the back of Jimmy Pla, so wasn't able to carry speed into turn 1, and was a little bit under pressure from Lachenau directly behind him, but actually at the front of the field, they've all kind of fell into where they started.
So onto the Mistral Straight for the first time. This, because of the large AM quota, is a championship that will use the chicane on the Mistral Straight, up to which they will come in a moment. You see the battles rage on lower down there. 29 Alpine up the inside line. Matteo Herrero trying to make ground up, and a rather brave Porsche Cayman also scrabbles its way through under braking. Slides through the chicane, skips over the curb, back onto the power. That was the Henrik Still driven car. Now Henrik Still very, very experienced as the top three start to edge away a little bit, don't they, right now? In fourth place, Antoine Potty in the Toyota. But Simon Gachet doing a very good job thus far, trying to get himself clear of the opposition. And the other fascination is going to be where Andronico is come the end of the opening lap.
I think one of the big losers out of that first lap was Enzo Juli in the Audi number 15. Seems to have registered through the second sector quite a way down from where he was on the first sector. So we saw a couple of people missing that chicane on the Mistral Straight. I think he was one of them that was creeping through, and even his top speed is affected at the end of the straight because he had to back off in the middle of it.
Right, so the end of the first lap imminent, and there another good fight rages on. Nico Verdonk under attack from Jim Pla. That's for second place as they come up towards the Virage Dupont. Jim Pla tries the outside line into the corner. Does he get the undercut? No. This will be fascinating to see which car gets the better traction off the turn, because the concept is pretty similar in both front-engine cars. A lot of grunt to drag them out of that tight corner, but Nico Verdonk in the Aston Martin has just enough in a straight line to fend off Jim Pla. Simon Gachet, though, leading by 11/10 of a second at the end of the opening lap. And now Jim Pla sends it up the inside of the Aston Martin. But Nico Verdonk, who's been around the block a few times, gets out his elbows and makes sure that he hangs onto the position, all of which brings the Toyota of Antoine Potty back into the mix. That car was a bit graunched in Q2 when Romain Monti suffered a bit of rear damage. Fifth is Tom Canning and Alex Fontana, sixth as he went across the line. And the progress of Andronico, he started 50th, he's up to 38th already.
Yeah, one of the biggest winners, Yedick down in 28th position, up 9 spots. His teammate Brian Bessler dropping 9 from that elbowing contact. So although he missed the first chicane, you would say that the BMW lost out quite a bit. And actually, I think the Camaro is dropping down as well. It started up in the top 6 positions, but down in 8th after the lap 1. I think further down after the next couple of corners.
Okay, so up they come towards the chicane. Remember, the leader is getting away now, because right now, look, Nico Verdonk is becoming a little bit the cork in the bottle, isn't he? So you've got second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all in a line, all the way back to Lachenau, interestingly, the double winner at Imola with Gus Bowers. So what looks like a really good fight is a good fight, but it's only for second place as Gachet builds that lead.
Well, yeah, this is great for Gachet, isn't it? Not only doesn't have to look at his mirrors whatsoever, he's setting the best sectors of anybody through this second lap. He's clear track behind him, and the more they squabble, the more he has a comfortable advantage to build for then handing over to his teammate. Remember, the top 2, Gachet and Pla, are Pro-Am entries, so they'll be handing over to drivers potentially slower than many of the other drivers that will be taking over as silver drivers. It's something we saw at Imola, where Gachet and Pla were right at the sharp end, but once they handed over, and depending also if we get a safety car period, it can be all undone.
Well, right now, Verdonk is being given a very, very hard time by Jim Pla. He tried to make that move last time around. Antoine Potty perhaps being sensible here, just lagging back a length to wait to see what pans out ahead of him. Tom Canning is next in the queue. Number 19, Aston Martin. Alex Fontana's Porsche is 6th. The mid-engine car taking on all of these grunt and go front engine brigade as they come now over the timing line once more down towards turn 1. But already now look, Gachet 3 seconds to the good.
Gachet 2 seconds faster on that last lap alone, because Verdonk was having to defend, because Pla was crawling all over the back of that Aston Martin and couldn't find a way through. It's a nice, decent queue of cars behind Verdonk, who's now, as you say, 3 seconds back from Gachet, but there's no bigger gap than that, all the way down to 8th spot. Gregor Guibert in 8th position right now. And for the moment, Jim Pla can't find a way through. Is there a space there? No, because, again, huge defense from Nico Verdonk, but it's not allowing them to draw up to the tail of Simon Gachet, and in fact will be compromising their speed through again that first sector. They lose another half a second.
So we work lap 3 here at Paul Ricard as the cars once again storm onto that Mistral straight, and an opportunity perhaps this time for the lead margin to grow just a touch, because Gachet again has clear real estate ahead of him now. Antoine Potty needs to get on with the job here, doesn't he, because he's almost fallen into the clutches of Tom Canning. Jim Pla also realising that he needs to get on with it, because otherwise Gachet is going to be so far up the road he won't be able to find a way back onto terms. But Verdonk is doing nothing wrong, he's defending really well, and there, look, Alex Fontana has dropped back behind Konstantin Lachenau, so that's a change for 6th.
Yeah, into the chicane, and Fontana's had a very good start to the race. He started a bit further down than where he is right now. And again, they just need to be so careful. As the tyres now come up to temperature, they need to make sure they're not four-wheel drifting too much. It's so easy to do, especially through senior, but that's the way you overcook the surface of the tyre. Then it doesn't work as effectively, and then it takes a few laps to get them back into the window that they really work best. So easy to do around this circuit with the sweeping mid-speed corners, but ultimately will cost you laps and laps worth of speed if you get it wrong. Gachet's going to have a huge lead after this third lap.
He is indeed, because here they come once more up towards the completion of the lap out of the Virage du Pont. This is 3 laps in the book, and Gachet was nearly 3 seconds to the good last time. He's done the fastest lap of the race. He's about to come through now, absolutely out on his own, so 2.9 seconds becomes 3.7. This is absolutely playing into his hands, isn't it? Verdonk keeping Pla at bay. Another little good battle further back. Look, it's all happening behind Fontana this time. Mike David Ortman just ahead of Greg Gilbert. Round the outside line there goes Dante Raponge in the Chevrolet, and the Camaro rather comes out just ahead. But again, Raponge, who's relatively inexperienced of this sort of racing, of that sort of car, doing a decent job, isn't he?
I think that was an attack from Adam Carroll trying to get down the inside for 10th position. Carroll had a really good last lap and is trying to make his way through the pack, and amazing to see a McLaren versus a Camaro, but indeed that was happening. And look at the queue of cars behind them as well. So Adam really needs to focus forward. Gilbert has lost a bit of ground through the first sector. Raponge lost a little bit of ground on the last lap, so there is a little bit of a queue forming behind that Camaro, but weirdly, through the fiddlier sections, it seems actually he's able to pull away from the McLaren. You would expect what looks to be a heavier car, but actually isn't, would be more clumsy through the slower parts of the lap, and he quite deep into the chicane there, carrying speed in.
This is why GT racing is so fascinating, and how the BOP works to try and equate all of these cars. And look, you've got Aston Martin, Mercedes, Toyota, 2 more Aston Martins and a Porsche all in a line, and they're covered by 10ths, aren't they? And that illustrates just how well it works. If anything, it's the Porsche dropping off the back a little bit. Alex Fontana finding that 3.8 litre mid-engined Cayman just a little bit breathless in comparison with all of those front-engine cars ahead that are tripping over themselves very nearly now, because round the outside goes Jim Pla. That gives him the inside for the next corner. The road comes to him, and finally, as they head into Bandor, through up into 2nd place has gone Jim Pla. Good move. While all that's been going on, Vincent Andronico is up into 35th from 50th on the grid in his Cayman, chipping forward. Now, Pla release has got one mission, and it's to catch Gachet before the pit stops.
Yes, but he also needs to do so by focusing forwards and not being worried about the Aston Martin behind. Verdonk is going to try and distract him, try and throw it down the inside as much as he possibly can. But Gachet, Pla, with his gold experience, one of the few golds in the field, will be simply looking forward, not being distracted, not driving off the ultimate racing line. And there's plenty of others to distract Verdonk as well, because we've got 2 more Aston Martins from the racing spirit of Le Mans with Canning and Lachenau, and the Toyota of Potty. Toyota of Potty hasn't looked to be in attacking mode so far, has he? He's just been there.
Yes, almost waiting for it to end in tears ahead. Well, it hasn't, and the change of place has happened. And look, straight away, I think he's coming back at Verdonk. So as they head down now through the chicane, look how much closer the Toyota is to the back of Nico Verdonk's Aston Martin. There, Pla is getting away, and Potty has, it's almost like, as you were saying that, he thought, yeah, I need to get on with this now. The message has hit home, because he can see Pla getting away. Right, Potty on the lights. It's not going to do any good, but it makes him feel better as he tries to really apply the pressure now to Verdonk, heading up towards the chicane on the Mistral. Gets out of the draft, looks to the inside line just to try to distract Nico Verdonk a little bit. Here they come to the braking zone, where you flick into the left. Then there's a almost straight there, because it's not a flowing chicane. It's a discernible wait before you get to the next element. Then you do start to turn back on that more gradual return to the Mistral Straight itself. And so Pla edging away. He has got to make up over 5 seconds to the race leader.
Oh, we've got damage through another Aston Martin. What's going on there? Is that a front left puncture? There's a bit of smoke coming out of the car. Here's a replay of what's happened.
It's Noah Andy in number 7.
Just smoky.
Yes. Oh, no, I was about to wait for the contact there, but it never quite came, did it? Number 3, Audi, clattered up the curb in the background, that car of Benjamin Lariche, but no drama or no further drama for Noah Andy. And now that's Lariche, who's had his own spin and a puncture by the look of it, because that car is very low on one corner. And yet, I think
oh wow, it's
more
suspension.
damage, yes. So there's definitely been contact between a couple of them, which has turned around the Audi and through the smoke. Broken suspension on the front corner of 53. That limps back to the pit lane. So number 53, which is the Mercedes in the hands of Pascal Gibon, has come to grief with the Audi here. Bang, bang. So that's why it got turned around and it's got a puncture, if not worse, and that's why the suspension is broken on Gibon's Mercedes.
I think on both of them, to be honest, by the looks of the angle in which it's on their Audi and the way that the car then disappears. Hopefully they can get them either off track in a safe position or back to pit lane so that we don't have to have any interruptions. There's plenty of space around this Paul Ricard circuit to park in a safe place and miles away from the actual circuit. There's no excuse really to find yourself in a dangerous position. Jimmy Pla throwing the car over the curbs there at the last part of the lap. Second part of the lap.
Yeah. So that's down towards Saint-Baume. Now there, look, number 19, which is Tom Canning. He's coming under attack from Constantin Lachenauer. Lachenauer finding life a little bit tougher this weekend, but of course it can all change in the second stint because the likes of Eric Debar, the likes of Jean-Luc Bobelic, who will take over some of those leading Pro-Am cars. Antoine Potty we're talking about in 4th place. He might not have the pace at the moment, but that's a silver entry. So he's still leading his class, and therefore it could well be in the second stint that the lead battle becomes the co-drivers of Potty, Canning and Lachenauer, even though at the moment they're 4th, 5th and 6th.
Yeah, handing over to Romain Monti in the Toyota for Antoine Potty. And Lachenauer with Gus Bowers, who was very fast in qualifying. Yellow flags flying on the Mistral Straight. That's because we've got the Audi parked up in an access point, so it should be easy to snatch that behind the barrier. And actually, to be honest, not really a place where you're going to be overtaking on the exit of the chicane. You might be side by side with somebody, but you can kind of get away with that.
Look how wide they run, but those floppy markers that are graduated to bring you back onto the racetrack, as long as they're on your left, you're fine. If they're on the right of you, then you're in real trouble because you've definitely exceeded track limits. Now, Jim Pla dropped back a little bit last time, even though he cleared Nico Verdonk. The gap went up from 5.2 to 5.5 seconds. Simon Gachet has still done the fastest lap of the race as the cars battle their way now through the Virage de la Tour. And then number 19 is Tom Canning, keeping his teammate Constantin Lachenauer at bay. This Racing Spirit of Le Mans team has done a really good job arriving in this series with that double victory at Imola. And as they come up towards the timing line, those cars I still think have got the pace to be in the mix in the second part of the race. Have a look also at Fontana in the Porsche. Breathless it may be, attractive shape it may be, but it's also got the next to the Astons on its tail, because Mike David Ortman there, another single-seater convert, darts to the inside line. The Pro Sport car breaks late. That was an easy pass.
That car slightly out of position, remember, from having a 5-place grid drop, and Fontana comes back at him with a switchback move. He'll have the inside line for the next of the braking zones. Circuit goes a little bit left here, but then the braking zone is into the right, and he has the inside line to claim the position. 4 wheels off the circuit to do so. Doesn't necessarily need to do that, but these curves are all so flat and so inviting to just rumble over them.
So coming up then through Saint-Baume, on towards L'École they turn. Fontana, that we know is a gun from single-seater racing, from GT3, from esports. He's going to make that car as wide as possible, but look how much quicker out of L'École was Mike David Ortman then. And now he's got the grunt up the Mistral Straight. He thinks about the inside line, he commits to it a bit early, but he should be able to gain track position here under braking. They come up towards the chicane. There's not much Fontana can do in terms of pace, but if he brakes as late as he can, he's got a chance of hanging onto the place. The voice you heard in the background was Steve Burns, the race director, calling for a full course yellow, and it's coming now.
1 full course yellow now.
So we go full course yellow, and that I suspect is to move that Audi out of harm's way.
Yeah, it's pretty close to an area to be able to snatch, isn't it?
It is, but I think part of the problem, I'm willing to be corrected on this, but if you're going to send marshals over the wall, you need to neutralise the race in some form to do that, whether it's a snatch vehicle or whether it's marshals to just push a car through a gap. If marshals are going to be on the circuit, I think I'm right in saying that after the accident in Formula 1 in Japan, you now need to have some sort of neutralisation. So if it can be done swiftly, like, you know, within half a minute, you've also got Gibbon's car to get rid of as well. You might be able to cover it purely with a full course yellow briefly and then restart, but it could be, seeing that needs removal as well, we're going to have a safety car period to get them out of the way, if it is a long period.
Big
so we'll
snatch
see.
by a quad.
Yeah.
Good effort. I was about to say that with the broken suspension of both of those cars, it might be quite difficult to pull them, but they got themselves a little local quad.
It's a strong quad. So there's the Audi out of harm's way. So swiftly done.
Yep.
But whether we need Gibbon's car, the Mercedes, broken corner and all out of the way, we'll wait and see. That could mean that the longer we are under full course yellow, the more the tyre temperatures drop, and that, yes, there is a safety car going out. So we will end up with a safety car period effectively to restart the race.
What's that panel from? It almost looks like the rear quarter of an Audi, I'm going to say. Strange bit to be missing off a car, but might make it a bit cooler inside. There's a bollard being recovered. There's all kinds of bits and pieces being scuttled off the circuit.
Check eBay tomorrow morning and you'll find all sorts of randomness from Paul Ricard. Right, there's the leader, Simon Gachet. Well, he is...
all of that work.
Absolutely, yes. The reaction in the car will be similar to all his rabbits dying in a minute, because, as you say, the hard work is for nothing, because they're all going to bunch up behind him once we go safety car. And Jim Pla, you can almost hear him rubbing his hands together with glee, because this brings him very much back into the game. It also brings, of course, the likes of Verdonk and Potti and Canning and Lachenau into a line. We are slightly getting ahead of ourselves because we've not yet had the safety car procedure called for, but we've seen it venturing out on track, ready for the race director to issue that command.
I mean, on the one hand, great for Jim Pla because it'll bring him onto the tail of Simon Gachet, but on the other hand, when he hands over to his teammate, which will not be that far away, we're probably 15 minutes before that will happen, he will be much closer to the guys behind who will have silver guns getting into the car, whereas the front three will be handing over to bronze drivers. And so, yes, it's good for them on their own, but actually as a team, they will then be more susceptible for being passed by those faster drivers in the second half of the race. A little frustrating for them, that's no doubt. I did notice also that on the when we called for the full course yellow, I think Jim Pla left huge 11s on the Mistral straight from where he just jumped on the brakes and obviously carrying quite high velocity at that point to react, to get down to the correct speed, had to lock up presumably both front wheels. Big lines down there. I don't know why they would be there otherwise, and I'm pretty sure they were there and laid by the Mercedes. So he might have a little bit of a vibration for the rest of the race and a couple of flat spots.
And there probably isn't really time to do a tyre change in the pit stop, so they will have to send Jean-Luc Bobelic back out on whatever rubber Jim Pla gives him. This, I suppose, at least while you have this interruption, allows them to recover up to a point because they're not being stressed at racing pace for a few laps.
Big challenge for the less experienced drivers in the second half of this race with the worn tyres, with the temperature that we have built up in the cars. Of course, the temperature will only get worse by going slower behind the safety car, and we do now have Gachet behind the Audi R8 safety car.
Yeah, we're not yet under safety car procedure, but he's caught it, and he's not going to overtake it, just in case.
You'll be able to see those 11s somewhere. They are somewhere around our camera position here, I think.
Well, Jim Pla, we know, is a spectacular driver. It's a shame that he's not got a seat in the 6R GT3 race this weekend, but he's an asset to any grid. And there is Simon Gachet, the race leader.
Safety car lights are not on.
No.
They would normally be on if they were operating as a safety car.
They would if it were a safety car.
Yeah.
It is on the track, ready for the safety car procedure to begin. We're still under full course yellow. That's why he's pulling away, because the safety car can go quicker than the delta speed for a full course yellow. That's why we have the safety car for the restart, because the pace is upped.
Yeah.
And therefore, tyre pressures, tyre temperatures are able to increase ready for the restart. But yes, now that it is ahead of the cars, the safety car crew can accelerate away once again, and everybody else stays at this slow speed while the marshals recover the Mercedes. Then we'll go, I would predict, safety car for one lap to get them all in a line, ready to go racing, and off you send them.
Worth pointing out that we've actually had 5 cars out of the race so far. Lagrange in the 28 is in the pit lane. We've seen Benjamin Lariche, number 3, and Pascal Gibbon both retire on track with suspension damage. We've also got Bessler and Andy in pit lane. So that's the BMW of the Turkish team, number 12, and Noah Andy in the Aston Martin is in the pits. I feel as though he was in the pits struggling with problems in practice and qualifying as well.
There was something not right about it. You're right. We saw it smoking, didn't we, early in the race?
Ah, yes.
But that's being resolved, one hopes. The incident between number 3, Benjamin Lariche, and number 32, which is the Sellerslag Mercedes of Jean-Luc Behetz and Johan van der Rum, that's being looked at. So we're under full course yellow.
Yes, because he was assaulted twice, wasn't he?
That's right, yes.
The second one did the damage to cause the retirement with Pascal Gibon, but the first one was what we saw earlier in the replay.
That's right. The incident between Lariche and Gibon is going to be looked at after the race. There is 89, the AGS Events car of Julien Lambert and Wilfried Casalbon. So right now, Pro-Am being led by Gachet, silver by Potty, and this car is currently ahead in the AM category with Wilfried Casalbon at the wheel of it.
We are going to soon be opening the pit lane as well, and if it takes another lap or so to get under safety car period and then go racing again, it could be very tight between pit lane opening and going back to green.
Which is a race director's nightmare.
Yeah. At least we've got a big pit lane here.
Well, true, or it could be that the pit lane is closed and the window is delayed. Now we go safety car.
Safety car procedure.
Yeah, we did see that in Imola, didn't they? We delayed pit lane in.
Correct.
Because it's such a tight pit. This one is quite long, and as long as everyone's spaced themselves out, there is the possibility of probably getting most of the grid in without tripping over each other.
I think sometimes it's almost as much to try and keep hold of the order, because if you're trying to go from full course yellow to safety car and then half the field peel in and you lose sight of the leader, then it's harder to get a fair restart. So that's another reason that it could be delayed, but hopefully if everybody tonks on here and gets into a line, we might be able to go racing at the end of this lap, but we haven't yet had an indication that it will be in this time. The race director wants to get on with it because he doesn't want necessarily to have to delay the pit window or have any further confusion coming.
Quite a big gap between Gachet and Pla before we called the safety car, 14 seconds, and now with Gachet tucked up behind the safety car, everyone else is having to catch up and concertina those gaps. So there's quite a lot of pushing going on here, and the tyres will be enjoying that, getting back up to temperature.
Safety car will be in this lap,
So that means we don't have to worry about delaying the pit window. We can go back racing. It doesn't matter necessarily that they've not caught everybody up. The safety car isn't there to bunch everybody up. It is there to increase the speed, and that is happening as people are chasing. The one that's straggling a bit is Nico Verdonk, who's way back.
Yeah, the team will be on the radio saying, push on, we're about to go racing again. And they'll all be getting that radio message and all be then frustrated with the car in front that isn't quite pushing as hard as you want. But we'll see plenty of cars with temperature and everything up to speed further back, whereas Simon Gachet has been sitting behind the safety car for the majority of this lap. Jim Pla looking very racy in second position, wiggling around in that Mercedes, trying to get the best temperature into the brakes and tyres before going racing for 1 or 2 laps before the safety car, before the window then opens.
So here they come then, the 2 race leading Mercedes make the run up through the Virage du Pont. So we're going to get really 1 lap before the pit window opens, and we go racing once more. Simon Gachet's 5-second, nearly 6-second lead evaporated, but he leads across the line now. Storm's clear. Jim Pla second. Verdonk is third. Potty is fourth. Fifth is Tom Canning. Sixth is Lachnau. By the end of this lap, the pit window is going to be open, but in a Pro-Am car with the Pro starting, they're going to stay out for as long as they can. Yeah,
at least 10 minutes, isn't it? So they will be massively trying to make hay now, those 2 at the front, trying to build as big a gap for their Am drivers as possible. Jim Pla pushing his teammate Simon Gachet. These 2 were running together in qualifying. Again, it was Gachet behind Pla. This time it's the other way around. It just hasn't got the front end going through the slowest point of the lap onto the first part of the Mistral straight, and Simon Gachet really the front end pushing there as Papadopoulos comes into the pits. That's before the window, and therefore there might be a problem for that Mercedes.
Yes, or they've rolled the dice, but he's arrived a little bit too early, so that's going to be one to look for to see whether or not the car does a regulation pit stop time or not. We'll keep an eye on that, but as much of the eye is on the race leader, because Gachet is now really under huge attack, isn't he, from Jim Pla, in the same way that there Verdonk is under attack from Antoine Potty. So they've started to pair off just a little bit. Cars through together. 88 seconds is the line-to-line time for the mandatory pit stop in this race. So that is what we're looking at. Anything well below that 1 minute 28, you know, could bring a penalty. Out wide goes Gachet, out wide goes Pla, and those two Mercedes, even though they're squabbling, have still gapped Verdonk in the Aston Martin.
This is where they had their times disallowed by running a little bit too wide through Beausset, named after the village just across the road from that particular corner. Signes also is another part of the village close by, and a name of one of the most famous corners on the circuit.
Well, the two Mercedes continue to make the run up towards the end of the lap. The Papadopoulos Mercedes has just rejoined, 1 minute and 30, so it's done a regulation pit stop time, but before the window opened, which is going to be one to allow the stewards to ponder. Here they come up for the race lead. Then you can see the battle pack for 5th that has become a very, very long line. And now we've got cars peeling out of that leading group, because Tom Canning, Rui Miojas, Antoine Leclerc and Gabriela Yelkova all into the pit lane. So the order does shuffle now, and it could be a good idea, couldn't it? Get out of the traffic, because your lap times are being compromised, and try and buy yourself some clear space.
Just for that one lap, if it's 88 seconds through the pit lane, the lap is a full 2 minutes or plus 2 minutes, so you will, in theory, have a little bit of clear space, but what you don't want to be doing is catching the tail end Charlies that are occupying valuable racing room and then really compromising you in a way that you're not being compromised if you're running at the sharp end of the field. Antoine Potty all over the back of Nico Verdonk for 3rd position, and here is a increasingly busy pit lane.
So everybody's cycling through these regulation pit stops, with the gap between those Mercedes when they cross the line just half a second. The battles are raging on just about everywhere you look now, with Constantin Lachenauer under attack from Mike David Ortmann. Then on the outside line in the white and yellow and blue Aston Martin, Mike David Ortmann brakes as late as he dares, goes right round the outside. Very, very good move. So Mike David Ortmann gains the place and kept it all under control, and comes out of the chicane the other side of the comparable car in the hands of Lachenauer. That was a peach of a move.
Yes, but compromised in speed, because he had to enter the slower part of the chicane slower to make the corner, and therefore more momentum from Lachenauer. Tries to go around the outside at Signes. Is there enough space? There is, and he's been given a little space on the inside. That's worked out, but he hasn't actually made the pass stick. Switch back at Beausset. Is there space on the inside? No, there isn't. Teammate coming through.
So out wide is force number 10, Constantin Lachenauer, and he's therefore lost 2 places on that lap as Dante Raponge gets up and past him as well. That throws a lifeline to Alex Fontana. Shows, doesn't it? You lose 1 place, suddenly your rhythm is disturbed, your momentum is destroyed, and you lose another place and another, and you've got to regroup as quickly as possible. And also some of the pace disappears, because the Aston Martin unable to instantly come back onto the tail. So Lachenauer decides now the pit lane is as good a place as any. Now is as good a time as any to get Gus Bowers into the car and almost do a refresh for the whole system, because he has struggled over that last lap. Put Gus Bowers fresher into the car. So Lachenauer is in, and so Juliet is in, and there, back marker rejoins after a stop right in the way of the race leaders. That was the Christophe Amon, Michel Blanchemin Audi rejoining after its regulation stop, at exactly the wrong moment for Gachet.
Yeah, absolutely, and that will have compromised them through there. Almost worse for Jimmy Pla, who seems to have dropped off the back in that particular corner. The first of the pit stoppers after that first lap is the Tom Canning car, which now should have switched its transponder to the new driver. Yes, it has. Rabindra now aboard that car. Of course, timing screen's sorting itself out, but that's the car to watch out for, the number 19, in comparison to Gus Bowers getting into that other Aston Martin that's in the pits right now.
Another quirk of Paul Ricard is that the pit lane straddles the timing line. So depending on where your pit box is, sometimes you can be in the pits but not having been shown as completing the lap that you came in on, whereas others, of course, do trip the beam as they drive down the pit road. So you need to keep an eye to who is where within the pit lane as well. There is the Audi now having gone a lap down in the AM category. Christophe Amon, Michel Blanchemin share that car. Christophe Amon is behind the wheel of it. It's picked up a little bit of rear damage along the line as well. Gachet and Pla, though, covered by next to nothing at all. 0.2 of a second last time around. Nico Verdonk there, still running third.
If you remember, Christophe Amon in qualifying actually inside the top 10 in his particular class. Very, very fast at Imola as well. So he probably can travel at the pace of the guys around him, but is effectively a lap down, so has to give them the places. So this is frustrating for him, because by being slower and letting everyone through, he is compromising his position later on in the race.
But he'll get that lap back as others feed into the pit lane, so it'll come to him in the end, as the race leaders here, with a fifth of a second between them last time, come now down towards the Virage du Pont, and it is Simon Gachet just ahead of Jim Pla. Well, they don't pit this time because the pit in approach road, they have gone past that. That's before the last corner, so you know if they get to Virage du Pont, they're staying out. Look at third and fourth, because although Verdonk is now in the pit lane, Potty and Mike David Ortman have got themselves together. So Nico Verdonk bails from third place, and that means that the Toyota of Antoine Potty is still under attack, but it has gained a place. What nobody has been able to do, though, is go after these Acodis ASP Mercedes that are looking utterly dominant up front.
Well, utterly dominant in practice, utterly dominant in qualifying. They really have had the momentum with them this weekend, and so far it's all falling their way. A little bit more traffic to contend with, but it will change. The story of the race will change once we get the second drivers into this car. They both managed to get past the traffic cleanly, and again, Jimmy Pla getting right onto the tail of Simon Gachet. They've got another lap probably before they have to come into the pits, but they might have to split it, being that they are in the same team and occupying probably a similar place in the pits. They don't want to really stack the two cars up and compromise them in pit lane.
Gachet having done a very, very good job thus far. Fastest lap of the race. He will give way to Eric Dabar, and the sister car of Jim Pla to be handed over to Jean-Luc Bobelic. Well, Jim Pla would like to be the leader when he comes in, to say to the boss, there you go, I've done the hard work, it's in the lead. He's quicker than Gachet now, look, because he's absolutely gobbled up that gap between him and the leading car. Comes back onto the Mistral then, and with this pit window being 10 minutes in length, they're creeping towards the end of it. So up towards Senior they come. There can't be many more opportunities to pit. Maybe one more lap at the end of this if they don't take the opportunity this time. Pla tighter through Senior. Out wider goes the leader, Simon Gachet. Now down towards Beausset. Into this right that turns. A tighter line by Jim Pla. Tries to get the slingshot up the inside. Can't do it. Simon Gachet, slightly the less experienced of the two, but he's doing a very good job, really rising to the occasion here. But he's got Pla all over the back of him like a rash.
See, the floppies have gone at the exit of Senior. Somebody's assaulted them. I can tell you that Rabindra has actually fallen quite far back behind Gus Bowers, although no timing screens have now sorted that out. So the gap is just 1.2 seconds between them. Rabindra behind.
But both in at the same time then. The leaders both come down the pit road together. So that's going to, if he stays out, put Antoine Potty into the lead of the race. So no, he comes in, so does Ortman. I think this is the lap on which the pit lane is going to look like the ultimate GT4 car park. Raponge is in, Fontana is in, Adam Carroll is in, Greg Gilbert is in, Julien Brichet is in, Adrien Tombe is in, Ralph Calleners is in. There are cars going past the window, but they are those that have already stopped. So you've got the leading 12 on the track making their pit stops, and they're nearest to us. Eric Dabar takes over from Simon Gachet, and Jean-Luc Bobelic's distinctive figure is threading itself between the cage to get on board 87. Jim Pla puts his hand on JLB's crash helmet, sort of forces him into the car. In you go, mind your head, sir. And the seatbelts will be done up and send that car back into the race in a moment. Konstantin Lachenauer pitted a lap or two ago. Vincent Andronico, I know pit stops shuffle this a bit, but from 50th, 16th when he pitted.
Going to take a little bit of time for timing screens to sort itself out once these cars go back onto circuit. We can look out of our window to see where the Toyota, for instance, is, that pitted before, and the two Aston Martins. Lachenauer handing over to Bowers. Tom Canning handing over to Rabindra. Those two are really ones to look out for in that leading pack before we went into the pit window.
I reckon now the one to watch is going to be Romain Monti, number 66 Toyota, because there, look, it is the best of the silvers behind those two Pro-Am Mercedes, and Romain Monti should be quick.
Well, that seems to have worked out for them, hasn't it? Because in the background was Rabindra in the first of the Aston Martins, and only just appearing over the slight brow of the hill before turn one. So there is a decent gap between the two Acodis ASP Mercedes and the Aston Martins that were chasing him. I think Monty's jumped the Aston Martins. Yes, he has. So Toyota up to third, then fourth Rabindra, and then actually good stop for the second of the Aston Martins there.
That's right. So Debard now leads from Bobelik from Monty, Akil Rabindra 4th, Hugo Sasa 5th, and Gus Bowers in 6th. So again, you've got fresh drivers into the car. It's going to be a really different order. Certain cars will be quicker, some might be a bit slower, and a lot more shuffling with just under 25 minutes of the race to go. So Debard versus Bobelik will be the lead battle. Also, don't forget to factor into this the Adam Carroll, now Tim Whale, Greystone GT McLaren. Tim Whale has never raced here before, but he's been very rapid over the laps that he's done, although they did miss a chunk of free practice yesterday after a vacuum pump failed, so they've been busily trying to make up for that lost time yesterday. But that car could be there or thereabouts come the end as well.
I will also offer you number 15, Enzo Juli, handing over to the fastest man in qualifying 2, Luc Ibanez, who was by far the fastest, most dominant driver in our qualifying 2 section. They are within the top 10. I'm just trying to see if we can see on our timing screen where they are. Maybe they're not in the top 10 any longer, but they certainly were the last time that screen flashed through. But as I say, depending on where you pit, before or after the timing line, and getting the timing screen back into some semblance of order will only be done once our leaders go over the line for the next time and everyone else follows through.
This is all the pit stops now done. Now that's the, for my money, the dark horse out of all of this, the Toyota in the hands of Romain Monti. So that's the leading silver, and we'll see in a moment which of the racing spirit of Le Mans Aston Martins he's got behind him. So up towards the timing line, the leaders have gone by 2.9 seconds there between Eric Debard, who's done a really good outlap to get ahead of Jean-Luc Bobelik by that margin. Now there in 3rd place is Monty, 4th is Akil Rabindra, 5th is Hugo Sasa, and then in 6th place Gus Bowers. Bowers is going to be one to watch as well, but those 2 Pro-Am Mercedes ahead of 4 silvers. Now I'm not suggesting that just because you're an Am you're slow, but are we anticipating that they're going to be able to hang on in there? The gap covering the top 6 is 10 seconds.
Yeah, we need another lap really to see how their pace is. Last lap, Bobelik doing a 25, which compares to Rabindra's 15, but Rabindra and Bowers pitting a couple of laps before, so up to speed with their cars, whereas some of the others still getting up to speed. I think we still need another lap for it. Ibanez, by the way, is 7th position. That's where I thought he was in the Mercedes, and closing in on the back of that battle for effectively 3rd position. Monty, Rabindra, Sasa and Bowers.
Okay, behind Ibanez is Tim Whale. In 9th place, the Nico Verdonk started. Now Rodrigue Gillon driven Aston, so that's dropped a long way back. And then 10th, Fabien Machal, who's taken over from Greg Gilvo, which is normally that Audi, one of the cars to beat in Pro-Am, but it's never really looked as though it's been here thus far in today's race. So there, coming down towards the chicane, Greg Gilvet applying pressure to Rodrigue Gillon as Romain Monti heads up towards Senior. There behind him is, through the traffic, Akil Rabindra, who's under attack, isn't he, from Hugo Sasa here. And Sasa in the white-nosed Aston tries to get up on the inside line. Akil Rabindra, having taken over from Tom Canning, goes wide. That is Hugo Sasa's opportunity. He's almost alongside, but it's going to be the outside line for the next corner. They skim mirrors, but back on the inside line goes Rabindra. The Indian driver goes wide. Hugo Sasa switches sides, gets up the curb, and goes through. Good pass.
Lovely stuff between the 2 of them. No paint swapped, and nice and respectful between the 2, and it's not over yet. Another big braking zone into the final turn. The Virage du Pont is another opportunity to throw the car down the inside. But of course, the previous corner being a left-hander means you kind of naturally end up in the middle of the road. You naturally end up defending your position. All of that, of course, is going to invite Gus Bowers, the victor last time out, to play as well. I would offer you another little story that our 89 machine, which is the best AM, was Will Casabon, now is in the hands of Julien Lambert. The pit stop seems to be a little bit shorter than the rest. We're expecting something around the 88-second mark. They are more like 80-second mark. So I think stewards will be looking at that. It's quite easy. It's on the timing screens to see. It could be that our timing screen is missing the bit between the 0, which would make it an 8, which would make it good.
Can I also offer you Luc Ibanez, who has taken over from Enzo Juliet in 87.8 seconds, not 88 seconds.
I know, but when you start looking at that, then there's all kinds of 87s and 86s.
There are.
So I'm going to say that there's a window of
You're allowed a
error.
joker pit stop. You're allowed 1 second's tolerance, which you can use in either race, so race 1 or race 2. So it might be that 1 or 2 teams here suddenly shout to the stewards, we're going to use our joker stop, but yes, the leading pit stop, Debard's, I said he'd come out with a bigger gap. It was an 86-second stop as against 88 of number 87. So there are cars under investigation, and one of them is number 81. So the leader is being looked at. So that's more than the 1 second tolerance that you're allowed for your Joker pit stop. So the leading car is being looked at. Another one being looked at is the Rui Meerhouse Erwin Bastar Audi, and also 89, you were just talking about it, the Lambert Casalbon car. That is Mauro Ricci, who has had a spin. He rejoins towards Nicole, but the significant one is that the leader is under investigation for being too short on that pit stop.
By 0.2 of a second if you have a 1 second tolerance, so that's really, really tight. Just need to back out of the throttle just a little bit.
It's either too short or it's too short.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And you have to have a rule, and you have to have a full stop to that rule. But it's something that Eric Debar could have avoided if the top timings watch was correct. More tricky to avoid a 10-second too fast stop.
That I do grant you. Yes, you haven't really got much comeback from that. But 1 second or a tenth of a second, yeah, it's a little bit harder to control. So right now, if you take the race at face value and these Damocletian investigations continue, you've got Debar ahead of Bobelik by 3.5 seconds. Romain Monti in third. Now his last lap was, as he went over the timing line, a 2:15. So Monti in the Toyota is lapping quicker than the two leading Mercedes. And big wobble there from fifth for Akhil Rabindra. That absolutely gift wraps the place to Gus Bowers. I was about to say this battle is for fifth place. Well, it ain't a battle anymore, because Akhil Rabindra there made it oh so easy for Gus Bowers because he tripped himself up.
Yeah, good effort to actually keep it from spitting himself left into the wall, but not happy with that car at the moment. Not happy with the rear end of it, which just started to get away from him. And by the time he corrected, he found himself off the circuit. Would have picked up all kinds of rubbish out there. Plenty of detritus that he'll now want to be trying to clean off those tyres to give himself confidence and get rid of all the vibrations.
Well, there going through is the recovering Rabindra, former single-seater racer, raced in the BLDC British F3 Championship. There's a car expiring.
14 and 81, a 1 second stop-go penalty for short pit stop. That's 14 and 81, 1 second stop-go penalty for short pit stop. Car 89, 7 second stop-go penalty for short pit stop.
Thank you to Steve Burns, the race director. So that's the outcome of the investigation. I mean, the timing data is such that you haven't really got anywhere to hide, have you?
No, exactly. I thought we just had time penalties in Imola. We didn't have a stop-go, because to go, that effectively means they've got to come into the pits, they've got to stop at their box, they then have to then go again after the prescribed time. And so it's a huge penalty here with such a long pit lane on the pit lane speed limiter, and that's going to throw our leading car, the number 80 car, way down the timing screens, and our leader, Inam, with a huge penalty.
Indeed, so it's all up in the air, and now the battle is not between Debard and Bobelik, it is between Bobelik and Monti, and that gap is 1.6 seconds. Jean-Luc Bobelik's last lap was a 2 minutes 16.6, Romain Monti's was a 2 minutes 15.2, so I was predicting good things for the Toyota, which I don't think really has had the best of results over the years, and that, I'm afraid to say, is Andreas Mayel, who's taken over from Vincent Andronico, and he is not only with damage, but he is so far off the circuit, he's got his own postcode. That is down at the exit of the chicane at turns 2 and 3, so there's drama for Mayel. That is the leader on the road, but has got a 1 second stop-go penalty to make very shortly. So the real race leader is going to be Jean-Luc Bobelik. And look, that Toyota is almost on his shoulder now.
And I would offer that Sasse is faster than the two of them as well in effectively third position. And Ibanez is doing exactly what we expected him, being one of the fastest men out there too. So it's really, he's in seventh right now, concertinaing up for the lead virtually, because Debar is still there at the moment. And then we've got another stop-go penalty. That is the 89 as a separate message.
That's the very stop before it goes. That's the 7 seconds as opposed to the 1 second. So here it is game on, because now look, Sassa, as Ben was predicting, comes up to have a pop at the Toyota, and Antoine Potty breaks late and tries to make a move against Jean-Luc Bobelik, and thankfully contact is avoided. Hugo Sassa possibly here just waiting for it to end in tears. Bobelik certainly hasn't got the pace to repel the pair of them. So let Romain Monti do the hard work, let him open the door, then the Aston can find a way through. But this is effectively the lead battle, and I think Romain Monti will arrive at senior ahead this time. He does. Bobelik moves across, tries to get the line for the corner. Sasa up the curb, takes another marker out with him. And as they come to Beausset now, he's got the line, hasn't he, for the next corner. Romain Monti goes through into the notional lead of the race, and Hugo Sasa is up past the Mercedes as well.
Yeah, I feel like Bobelik was a little kind there, almost at the chicane, having seen the Toyota behind him, pulled to the left-hand side and said, please come through. I'm not really racing you.
Exactly, because he's leading his class. The only real thing that Bobelik needs to worry about is Tim Whale in the Greystone GT McLaren. Now, Bobelik is currently, go with me, 4th on the road, 3rd in the race because of the leader about to serve his stop-go penalty. Tim Whale is running 8th, and of course will gain 1 place, but that's the class opposition. Now, it depends whether Bobelik goes into coast mode, depends whether the other Astons of Rabindra and Bowers get past, and also the Mercedes of Ibanez. All of that within 14 minutes. So he is quite a long way up the road over the Greystone GT McLaren, as Eric Debar is now in for his stop and go. But if Bobelik's pace really falls away, then he could be in jeopardy for his class win.
Yeah, I feel as though the McLaren is a little slower, certainly on the last lap was a little slower. There is the stop-go penalty now concluded for Eric Debar, and he will come out quite a way down, although, again, he is part of the Pro-Am, so he might still find himself on the podium, depending on whether he comes out ahead of the McLaren or we've got Fabien Michel as well, and there's actually a good clutch of Pro-Am drivers there, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, a lot of them, and he's going to come out somewhere in there. So Debar's going to have a good battle on his hands now.
Yes, it might not be the battle he wanted, but you're right, it's going to keep him busy to the end of the race. So that Mercedes rejoins as now for the lead of the race. Hugo Sasa pulls up on the outside line, and this car has looked so good at the Mistral, but Romain Monti is able to brake a little bit later, so the Supra hangs onto the place. But for 13 minutes of him to do this, it's a big ask.
And when you do that, you compromise the left-hander, you compromise the right-hander, you compromise the momentum onto the straight, and the Aston Martin pulls alongside. He's on the outside line into Signes, but we have seen this work before. He might even have the corner before he gets to it. There is a bit of an overlap. He turns in and claims the position. Into the lead then for Hugo Sasa.
So that's a car that started with a 5-place grid drop. Now he's the outright race leader. So certainly a race of changing fortunes, a stint of changing fortunes, because all the drama has come in this second part of the race. So now Sasa leads Monti, leads Bobelik just because Gus Bowers is right there. Then in 5th place it's Ibanez, who's also jumped ahead of Debard. So Eric Debard is 2nd in Pro-Am, and then 7th is Rabindra, and 8th is Tim Whale, heading for a Pro-Am podium in the Greystone GT McLaren, going really well. First time he's ever raced here, so this is a good outcome if you can get on the podium.
Gus Bowers trying to get past Bobelik into Signes, didn't manage it that time, and actually he's fallen off the back of the Mercedes just a little bit. It seems to be inevitable, but he needs to get it done because Luc Ibanez is one of the fastest men on the circuit right now, just behind him, and he will not want to have to fight with yet another Aston Martin. So Bowers to the inside line into turn 1, and if Bobelik is as kind as with him as he has been previously, that's an easy move done. And indeed, Bobelik falls into line, still leads his class, now off the overall podium, but c'est la vie.
Well, it's not Bobelik's fight, is it? He's the Pro-Am leader. These are all silvers surrounding him as the leaders, with 11.5 minutes just over, come down through the chicane. Hugo Sasa is still ahead, but only just of Romain Monti. And the Supra, yet again, so near and so far from a win. It has had an overall victory in the past, and it's done very well in the French Championship, but it always seems to be a bridesmaid, really. It always has good pace, never quite gets the results that you might have hoped for that car. Onto the Mistral once more comes the leader. So Hugo Sasa doing a really good job. Mike David Ortman, a good opening stint. Sasa carries on the good work. And yes, I know that penalties have helped, but they were probably on for a Silver Cup win anyway. Gus Bowers making good progress as well. Bowers last time was in the 15, so quicker than Monti. And in Pro-Am, Tim Whale still 2nd in the class because Eric Debard, as the screen updates itself, has actually dropped to 17th overall, so off the podium in class.
The gap, though, over the line last time between Whale and Michel was 0.010 of a second, so that may have changed out of our sight since the start of the lap. Obviously incredibly close between the Audi and the McLaren.
Indeed so. Fabien Michel knows Paul Ricard a lot better than does Tim Whale. Now that's Jean-Luc Bobelic, who's about to get his hat nailed on by Lucky Banyef, who gets up on the inside line in the NM Racing Team Mercedes. And again, it's not Bobelic's fight. So yes, he's lost another place, but it doesn't really matter. He is still leading in Pro-Am. Ibanez then gets up into fourth. Gus Bowers is already third. Ibanez fourth. Akhil Rabindra will be the next man to come up and have a go. So Bobelic driving within himself, maintaining his class lead, letting everybody else drive their own races.
There has actually been a bit of a drama in the battle between Tim Whale and Fabien Michel, because Michel's dropped down to almost 6th or 7th in class. So they were very, very tight over the line. But since that point, Michel's dropped way back, and therefore the McLaren holds on to 2nd in class right now. Haven't seen that on screen, but certainly timing screens suggesting that a bit of a mistake or an issue for the Audi number 42.
Okay, so the leaders go by. We're about to have Tim Whale come towards us, hopefully. Now you can see how far back from the class leader he is. There is the McLaren.
Yes,
and you're right,
space.
There's no Fabien Michel around him either. So Tim Whale ahead of Loic Villiger. That's the 2nd and 3rd battle that's building up, 7/10 between them in the Pro-Am class. But for 9 more minutes, if Tim Whale can hang on in there, 2nd will be great, a podium will be good. The trouble is that the rest of Pro-Am are all in a line. Look, because you've got Villiger, you've got then Gion, you've got Jacoma, you've got Kenny Heremans. They're all there, all ready to pounce.
Somewhere at the back of that queue is the delayed Audi as well, so he hasn't lost a huge amount of time. He just made a little error, and everyone's defending and attacking all at the same time as well, all squabbling over the same piece of tarmac.
Yeah, you've got, after his dramas, Michel in 16th place and Eric Debard in 17th. So the Pro-Am fight rages on. 8.5 more minutes are on the clock. The Alpine of Loic Villiger now starts to flash its lights to try to get it not only onto the back of Tim Whale, but also startle him into making a mistake. But the former Formula Palmer Audi racer, who's come back into racing through that pure McLaren GT series, but in terms of a mainstream championship, come back into racing this year after a 20-plus year layoff and loving every minute of this. Tim Whale comes out of the chicane, still 7th.
The little Alpine that has not been the strongest around this circuit, tiny little engine in that thing, and prefers a more fiddly circuit than we have here at Paul Ricard, now starting to get onto the tail of the McLaren, but the McLaren a bigger, more GT. Spec car goes wide. Can he hold on to the position? No, he can't, I'm afraid. So that is a position lost for Tim Whale, and there's more changes further back.
Kenny Heremans comes up to have a go at the Cayman of Ivan Jacoma, and now Tim Whale is under attack from the Rodrigue Gion-driven Aston Martin. That's the car that Nico Verdonk started, but in turn Gion is under attack from Jacoma in the Cayman, who tries to get up on the inside. If those two squabble, it will give a bit of a lifeline to Tim Whale. Kenny Heremans in the Chevrolet next in the queue, trying to use all of that power to jump ahead of the Cayman of Jacoma up before the end of the lap, down towards the Virage Dupont then, and to the end of lap number 21 they come. So Tim Whale 1 place down, comes over the curb onto the pit straight, and in the background the little Alpine rather cheekily has a pop there. That's Jean-Luc Navarro comes up to have a go at Heremans. So you think that the Corvette will be able to pull away coming over the line, but it doesn't quite happen. The Chevrolet fends off the Alpine down towards turn 1, and Jean-Laurent Navarro just alongside, coming into turn 1, up the curb he goes. That really is little and large of GT4. Get the feeling that the Camaro is about to swat aside that Alpine. Now all the horses kick in, but maybe under braking. Yes, back through on the inside goes Navarro, and he's done it. Takes the place on the inside line there. Fantastic stuff. Now, Jacoma has cleared the Verdonk Gion sideways Aston, and now Ivan Jacoma is going to have a go at Tim Whale in the McLaren. All of this is for 3rd in the Pro-Am battle. And part of the reason that we've got this great battle going on is because of the way that the McLaren ran wide a lap ago up at Senior. And this was it, Ben?
It just carried a bit more speed, a bit too much speed into that turn, and was very, very good at gathering it up off the circuit, wasn't he? The car does look a little bit nervous on the rear end, especially into turn 1. Heavy on the brakes. The rear end twitches almost like he's setting it up like a go-kart. It doesn't look massively comfortable for him. and now he approaches Senior again. He'll want to be throttling back a little more than he did last time because he's got so much pressure coming in from all the guys behind.
Have a good think about what he did wrong and what he needs to do to get it right this time. Yes, third, nose to tail. This is third overall, third in silver. Gus Bowers just ahead of Ibanez as they are absolutely nose to tail. 5.5 more minutes on the clock. Down they come towards the Virage du Pont. Up the road leading is Sasa, second is Monti, and Ibanez for the podium is a possibility here as Gus Bowers goes a little bit wide. He switches from McLaren to Aston Martin for this year. Ibanez in his second season with the Mercedes comes up over the timing line, and as they break the beam, the margin between those two is just 1/10 of a second, and there's time left in the race for the pair of them to carry on the battle and also to trade places. So down they come towards turn one. Gus Bowers trying to make that car as wide as possible, but Ibanez knows most of the tricks in the book around here.
And we've got Aston Martin leading at the moment, a good gap of 2 seconds over Romain Monti in the Toyota. They're about 2 seconds back, this little battle from Monti. But Ibanez was very, very fast in qualifying. Definitely got the handle of that Mercedes, and now just needs to work out a way to get past. There is one thing catching, there is another thing passing, and the way that this circuit is so sinuous and the cars go from left to right to left to right of the circuit, it tends to mean that if you make a pass at one corner, you compromise the next one.
So here they come onto the Mistral once again then. This is the run up towards the chicane. And on that part of the circuit, so the Aston Martin does have the advantage. It edges away a little bit, doesn't it? So that means it's advantage Gus Bowers. Right, Ivan Jacoma has got himself up now past Tim Whale, but only just. The Porsche jumps ahead of the McLaren. Tell you what, Tim's going to remember this battle, isn't he? Because he's been absolutely in the thick of it. So welcome to Paul Ricard, Tim. Tim Whale wide over the curb there, but the Greystone GT car now under attack because behind you've got the Rodrigue Gillon Aston Martin. That in turn is being given a hard time by Jean-Laurent Navarro. And here, coming in towards the chicane, the McLaren comes up on the outside of the Porsche. Just about gives him room. Tim Whale gets rattled out over the curb, up on the inside, elbows out, clatters into the side of the Cayman. The Alpine tries to get into this as well. They come 3 wide out of the chicane. There's just about room for all of them. The aero-friendly McLaren is in the middle, and now all the horses of the Chevrolet are unleashed up the inside line, and Kenny Herriman's gobbles up the real estate. Tim Whale is back at the head of the queue, and he gets the line for Senior right as well. But then the impudent Alpine comes up on the inside, heading down towards Le Beausset. Through he goes. Here comes Herriman's up the inside. He goes ahead of 2 of them, and Jacoma suddenly dive bombs the McLaren as well. Fantastic stuff. And Tim Whale all of a sudden is forced offline. He may have picked up a bit of damage in that compromises the car, because right now it does not look happy.
Well, he was just on the wrong part of the circuit, isn't he? And he's just invited that massive train of cars to come through. Unfortunately, he was actually on the racing line through Beausset, but there is this alternative tight line to make a pass, and everybody else was on it. So unfortunately, from getting his elbows out and doing a really good job through the chicane, he's really lost out now.
So Kenny Herriman's was the big winner out of all of that in the Chevrolet Camaro, because when he came over the line last time, he was 12th, and this time, as he comes through, let's see where the car slots into. It is 8th, so that was quite a lap to gain 4 places. Talk about good racecraft. That's for 3rd, and that's Ibanez making the move and making the move stick on the inside. He's done it at last. He's gone 3rd.
Now, can Gus Bowers gather himself up? Now he's had the pressure relieved from behind. Can he get himself back into an attacking mode? Looks to the inside. Obviously, the Aston Martin's got good grunt down the Mistral straight, has the inside line for the chicane, and actually, just on acceleration alone, gets himself back past.
Side by side into the braking zone. Ibanez switches sides. Clean move. If he can make it stick, goes one side, goes the other, goes sideways as well. Gus Bowers accelerates out of the chicane, just ahead. Ibanez, though, gets the gap on the inside line, but has he got the grunt to stay alongside? He's almost level. But because he's on the inside, that tighter line, that shorter line, it might come back to him. No, Bowers secures it into the corner. There's going to be one more lap at the end of this. This is going to go down to the wire. The floppy markers, long since dispatched now, allow the drivers to run as wide as they are able so to do. And now Bowers gets forced out wide. Ibanez says, thank you very much. Through he goes. Easy pass in the end.
Oh, and Bowers just a little bit too wide through Beausset, got onto the dirty stuff and couldn't bring the car back. Suddenly picks up a load of understeer from all the dirty detritus and just can't make the apex of the corner. There is a line around there, but he was just a bit too wide to take it. Amazing how much grunt that Aston had, though, along the straight. Something to note for tomorrow's race, because really, that Aston came back at the Mercedes quite easily.
Did it ever. Right, while all that's been going on, Hugo Sassa is away by 2 seconds in the lead of the race. We are just starting the last lap. There is less than a lap time left in the race. There is Hugo Sassa ahead of Romain Monti. So it's Aston Martin from Toyota. From Mercedes, Luc Ibanez there in third. In fourth place is Gus Bowers. In fifth is Akhil Rabindra. Sixth, heading Pro-Am, is still Jean-Luc Bobelic. We've got a yellow flag out in the middle sector, and I have a horrible feeling that Tim Whale has gone missing because he's not recorded a sector time.
Yeah, gone missing from 19th position. Oh, he's in the gravel. There he is.
That's coming onto the Mistral, isn't it? That's coming out of L'École.
Has he been helped?
Let's find out, because certainly there's a Mercedes jolly close behind, but no.
Oh, that almost looks like the damage that he picked up from the chicane turned in, and there was no turn, was there?
Well,
an odd place to end up.
It's not somewhere you see cars terribly often. So really, it was wrong coming through turn 4, and that's what's pitched him onto the wrong line into the gravel coming onto the Mistral straight. Real shame that after a good drive.
Who knew there was gravel traps here? I hadn't seen that before.
As I say, it's not the place you find cars parked very often. So Tim Whale, sadly, out of the race, but he certainly had a good old battle. Right, so Hugo Sassa leads the way, and he's on the Mistral for the last time, with in second spot Romain Monti in the Toyota, and then in third is Luc Ibanez, who is not that far behind. Fourth is Gus Bowers, and then there's a big gap back to fifth. Akhil Rabindra ahead of Bobelic. Villiger, Kenny Heremans is 8th, Jean-Laurent Navarro is in 9th, and Ivan Jacoma is in 10th place. So there is Jean-Luc Bobelic. He's heading for honours now in the Pro-Am category, and as we've been saying during the course of the race, has largely done exactly the right thing by keeping out of trouble, by making sure that he's not involved in the wrong battle at the wrong time. So Jean-Luc Bobelic heading, it seems, for a class win. And there, down towards the Virage du Pont, comes number 24, Hugo Sassa. So Mike David Ortman started this car after a grid drop for indiscretions this morning, and after a very good drive by both. The car from 11th on the grid is going to come through to win the third race of the year in the GT4 European Series. Mike David Ortman and Hugo Sassa are victorious at Paul Ricard by a winning margin as they take the checkered flag from Romain Monti and Antoine Potti of 3 seconds. Aston Martin defeats Toyota then. Through for third place is the Luc Ibanez driven Mercedes that was started by Enzo Juliet, and then fourth to Gus Bowers and Constantin Lachenauer, the winners at Imola in both races. Fifth to Akhil Rabindra and to Tom Canning, and sixth goes the way of Jean-Luc Bobelic and Jim Pla, winning in Pro-Am. Seventh over the line has just come, the Alpine that Antoine Leclerc shares with Loic Villiger. And for 8th place, Kenny Heremans and Dante Reponge in the Chevrolet. 9th will be the Julien Brichet, Jean-Laurent Navarro Alpine. And then the top 10 rounded out by the Cayman, number 718 of Ivan Jacoma and Alex Fontana. So one of the better races that we've had, in fact, for the GT4 European Series. And the top 3 in the silver then, as overall, the Sassa, Ortman, Aston Martin takes the win. That's the AM winner, which is 88. The Stanislav Savronov Alexander Ventrup Mercedes. Second of the AMs was Julien Lambert and Wilfried Casarbon. And the third AM combination for Team Full Motorsport was Benoit Lisson and Cyril Salai. The Pro-Ams, I think we mentioned it was Jean-Luc Bobelic and Jim Pla that won it from Loic Villiger and Antoine Leclerc, as you see there, number 38 Porsche expiring of Max Kronberg, picking up a punctured tyre right at the very end. Third in Pro-Am was the Kenny Heremans Dante Reponge Chevrolet Camaro. And in silver, as overall, Sassa, Ortman ahead of Potti, and then behind the Romain Monti, Antoine Potti Toyota was Luc Ibanez and Enzo Juliet. 34 takes the flag, Alexandra Papadopoulos and Luca Bosco. That car brought home by Luca Bosco, so it finishes quite a long way down the order. In fact, 37th place, that car. But a great drive by Hugo Sassa and Mike David Ortman. Real shame that we had the demise of the Tim Whale, Adam Carroll McLaren right at the very end. That flashing yellow light to say that there's the number 38 Porsche stranded just after the finish line. So the provisional results of the race see the win for Mike David Ortmann and Hugo Sassa, Antoine Potti and Romain Monti second from Enzo Juliet, and Ibanez in third. Fourth, Constantin Lachenauer, Gus Bowers ahead of Tom Canning and Akil Rabendra. And then the top six rounded out by the Pro-Am winning Jim Pla and Jean-Luc Bobelic ahead of class rivals Antoine Leclerc and Loic Villiger, with Dante Raponge and Kenny Herriman's third. Fourth, Julien Brichet and Jean-Laurent Navarro. Fifth in class, Alex Fontana and Ivan Jacoma. Outside that top 15, you go hunting for the winning AM. 20th overall was 88, the Stanislav Savronov Alexander Weintraub driven NM Racing Team Mercedes. Second of the AMs was 89 of Julien Lambert and Wilfried Casalbon. And then third, Cyril Salai and Benoit Lisson. Coming home 26th overall, number 26, but third in class. And of course, there is another race tomorrow, which promises to be another lively affair, that is for sure, with the drivers that finished that race being the start drivers for tomorrow's race. So it'll be an interesting battle for the first part of tomorrow's race. And then, of course, the AMs in the Pro-Am cars get in to do the second stint and to bring them home. One or two hard luck stories out of all of that, such as the Vincent Andronica Andreas Mayel Porsche Cayman, that from getting up to midfield ended up with damage, with Andreas Mayel at the wheel of it, so that car needing to be repaired for tomorrow. But all being well, all 50 will be back out on track. So Hugo Sassa and Mike Ortmann winning by 3 seconds in the end from Romain Monti and Antoine Potti, and then third, Luc Ibanez and Enzo Juliet. So the GT4 cars make their way down the pit lane, and as the drivers make their way in a few minutes to the podium, let's look back at some of the best bits of a really lively first GT4 European Series race. It all began with Simon Gachet from that pole position storming away into the lead on the run down towards the first corner. But straight off he was being given a hard time by Nico Verdonck's Aston Martin. Jim Pla was on his tail, and it took Jimmy Pla quite a few laps to finally overhaul the Aston, but when he did, he set off after Simon Gachet. It was a great fight though between Verdonck and Pla, two experienced GT3 and GT4 exponents. They ran together for lap after lap in that battle, with Romain Monti, Antoine Potti's Toyota, with Potti at the wheel of it in fourth, possibly in the early stages waiting to see what was going to develop ahead. But as the battle continued, that car became ever more of a factor. One or two of the slower cars running out wide. The first big drama came when Pascal Gimont got into the side of Benjamin Lariche and turned him around, and the Audi stranded trackside with broken suspension, limped off the road, but in turn brought out the full course yellow, which in turn went to a safety car. On the restart of the race, Simon Gachet tried to build that lead once more over the charging Jim Pla. But then as the pit window opened, the pit lane became oh so busy. The leading Mercedes came in together, and because it was a slightly shorter stop than the regulations dictated, that meant that a stop-go penalty came the way of the penalised Eric Debargue. We lost the Porsche in the background of Andreas Mayel, and others shuffled their way up down the order with a big tag turning around the Henrik Pedersen-driven Aston Martin that had started from the pit lane. Hugo Sassa cleared Romain Monti. That put him up into third. Then he set off in pursuit of Jean-Luc Bobelic, who in turn inherited the race lead. When into the pit lane to serve a stop-go penalty came Eric Debargue. Ivan Jacoma jumped ahead of Tim Whale, who eventually in the Greystone GT McLaren had a right old moment coming onto the Mistral and went off backwards into the gravel. A win then for Hugo Sassa and Mike Ortmann in the first of the two GT4 European Series races of the weekend. Another all-action race in the championship here from Paul Ricard. And there is more of the same to look forward to tomorrow here in the south of France. We'll see you there.